Tom Cruise is turning 60 years old this summer, and he's been acting in movies for 41 of those years. In the last few decades, he's earned a certain reputation. Well, he's earned a reputation for a lot of things, but more specifically, he's become known for an ever-escalation of stunt work in his films. His seeming drive to go bigger and bigger on stunt work and action spectacle is even driving the actor into the depths of space. But before Major Tom blasts off, let's take a look back at some of the most dangerous stunts the fearless actor has pulled off. I'm Chris Goodmakers with Screen Rant, and this is behind Tom Cruise's greatest stunts. When Mission Impossible Rogue Nation was first released, a lot of the marketing was around the fact that Tom Cruise strapped himself to an Airbus A400M Atlas while it was taking off. Hey, if I did that, I'd brag too. This sequence was a late addition to production. Rogue Nation's director, Christopher McQuarrie, had the idea of a scene where Ethan Hunt is forced to cling to the outside of an escaping cargo plane. When he talked to Cruise about adding it, the film star agreed only if they could do it without green screen or compositing. McQuarrie probably then had a nightmarish vision about having to explain to the film's financiers why the movie's star fell 20,000 feet into an open field. However, as many have learned the hard way, the director knew it was best not to argue with Tom. The scene was rehearsed several times, with the plane's pilots finding the optimal angle and conditions to create both the best possible shot and the smoothest possible ride. The harness and an additional camera were digitally removed, but the rest is all in camera. 8 seconds, a new record for me. Tom Cruise has me beaten, however, at 6 to 6.5 minutes. The scene starts with a foot-first jump into a small open hole full of churning water. Ethan Hunt must place Benji's biometric gobbledygook into the whatsamajig so his IMF co-worker doesn't end up shot by guards. Because of various plot contrivances, Ethan can't bring in any oxygen other than what's in his lungs. Cruise, who never does anything by half, trained with the delightfully named Kurt Crack. Crack is a professional diver and underwater performance trainer because some of the coolest jobs only exist in Hollywood. Cruise held his breath for 6 minutes for a demonstration and a reported 6.5 while filming. This record was actually recently beaten, however, on the set of the long gestating Avatar 2, The Way of Water, and by Kate Winslet. The actress held her breath for a full minute longer while filming a sequence. Watch out for the next Mission Impossible, where Tom Cruise will hold his breath for 30 minutes while holding onto a nuclear submarine traveling at full speed. Top that, Winslet. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get my personal time up.
This must be riveting for your viewers.
Let's dip outside the Mission Impossible franchise for a bit. Now is the time to talk about the failed 2017 reboot of The Mummy. Yay me. Failed is used very loosely here. Has the movie still made lots of money? Still, it wasn't enough to get the Dark Universe off the ground. Sorry to everyone who was looking forward to Javier Bardem's Bride of Frankenstein. He would have made a lovely bride. The Mummy's failure to capture an audience wasn't for a lack of trying on Cruise's part. He brought his usual A-game to the film's stunt work, including a sequence involving a crashing cargo plane, once again played by an Airbus. The particular Airbus used for this scene is the notorious Vomit Comet. If you're not familiar with the various planes that carry this moniker, it's a specially fitted aircraft designed to provide brief periods of weightlessness. This incredibly large plane is flown at top speed in a parabolic arc. At the peak of the arc, the inside becomes free of gravity's effects, just before it starts plunging directly at the ground. Super fun! The interior was fitted to look like a military C-130. Over the next 2 days, Cruise and his co-star would take 45 parabolic flights. Here comes a big old helping of personal bias, but the best film Tom Cruise has made in the last 10 years is easily Edge of Tomorrow. Or Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. Or Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. Or just Live, Die, Repeat. The robotic exosuits that feature in the movie have long been a staple of video games and comics, but here they are given the weight of real life. That weight, by the way, is about 85 to 135 pounds. That's how much Cruise and the other cast members had to carry when they were strapped into the mech suits. Built to be almost entirely practical, the heavy armor had Cruise strapped in it as it was flung around on cables across the battle-scarred beach set. The suits were so heavy and impractical but Cruise admits to never fully really feeling comfortable in them. That hasn't stopped Cruise from signing on for a sequel. I look forward to it changing titles 4 times after release. Now who's stuck in a time loop? Back to the world of the impossible mission force and its on-again, off-again agent, Ethan Hunt. Cruise was entering his 4th outing in the franchise when he really started amping up the stunt work, and he set a new precedent for the series when he dangled outside of the tallest building in the world. The Burj Khalifa sits in the heart of Dubai and has been a world landmark since its opening in 2010. It's over 2,700 feet tall, and the outside is mostly glass, which makes crawling around on the outside extremely difficult for all but the most arachnid of men. Still, that wouldn't stop Tom, and neither would studio-based insurance. When the insurance provider refused to cover risking the actor's life, Tom Cruise hired his own insurance firm and filmed the scene without the studio's permission. After a day of filming and a few close calls, the crew had amazing footage that would serve as a centerpiece for the 4th entry. Even when Tom Cruise is making a biopic about an infamous drug runner, he still manages to fit in a ridiculous plane stunt. American Made is the 2017 film about smuggler and CIA asset Barry Seal. Seal was an experienced pilot who used his connections to the clandestine agency to aid in the distribution of narcotics across the US. Being that he was double-crossing both the US government and the most dangerous crime lord of the 20th century, it's not a story that ends well for Seal. It's easy to see what drew Cruise to this film, as a large part of it takes place in a series of light aircraft. Seal would solo pilot a small plane and then dump his smuggled drugs out into the waiting arms of distributors. To recreate this, Cruise just did the same thing. The film's director Doug Liman followed in a helicopter and admitted to the discomfort of seeing his film star throwing fake drugs out of a plane with no one in the cockpit. Cruise pulled off the scenes without any issues, and it certainly wasn't his last time flying a plane like a madman. The new Top Gun film, much like the original, looks to set a new standard for air combat in cinema. They actually took the cast and strapped them into multi-million-dollar aircraft. The Navy's top pilots flew at high speeds with the film stars strapped in behind them. Cruise is also along for the ride, and it was his insistence on real jets and real locations that got the sequel made. Cruise himself has been strapped in for multiple flights to film the various action scenes. The US military reportedly denied Cruise permission to fly the F-18 himself, but he still manages to actually fly a few smaller aircraft throughout the film, including multiple helicopters. In the last released MI film, Mission Impossible Fallout, Cruise performed a halo jump. No, that's not when you jump into a teabag in a Slayer match. It stands for high altitude, low opening. As in jump from really high, but open your parachute just before you turn into an impressionist painting on the sidewalk. The set piece involves Hunt and Henry Cavill's multi-million-dollar mustache making the jump, only to be inconvenienced by some lightning. The only major CGI elements in this scene are the lightning storm itself and the hose and faceplate of an unconscious Cavill. You can also see the whip edit that transitions to a computer-generated ending, but outside those minor elements, everything else is in camera. And that camera is mounted to the head of a third jumper following Cruise as he plunges tens of thousands of feet towards the ground. Cruise performed hundreds of jumps just to attain the certification necessary, and it took an additional 3 jumps to film the whole sequence. Lots of specialized equipment was also built, from new camera equipment to custom props. Tom's helmet alone was the subject of a lot of work, having to be both functional and safe, as well as looking good on camera. Being functional and safe while looking good on camera does describe a lot of who Tom Cruise is. It's become sort of a running joke at this point that Tom Cruise's need to top his last film stunt-wise will lead the actor to die filming Mission Impossible 10 or whatever. It's even often insinuated that this is an outcome Cruise may be ghoulishly working towards. I honestly don't think this is in any way true. Tom Cruise never does any of the stunts with any overt recklessness. He trains for hundreds of hours with the top people in their fields before he even attempts these stunts. He also ensures and helps oversee strict safety measures during pre-production and filming. Cruise treats these stunts and sequences with the deadly seriousness they deserve, and is more than aware that it's often not just his life on the line. There is no denying that Cruise is rightfully a controversial figure. When it comes to his work, there is absolutely no denying that he has never rested on his laurels. He continues to bring immense charisma to each role and ensures the highest quality production possible. Cruise never uses a green screen for what can be filmed for real, even if it means hanging off the side of a skyscraper. See you in space, Mr. Cruise.